I got the call on a Tuesday. Not from an agency, but directly from their assistant, the Sterling Vance family. Aurora Sterling, the actress, Julian Vance, the musician. They needed a live-in and nanny for their twins, Leo and Luna, 7 years old. My background was teaching, not nannying, but the pay was astronomical, and my last school had closed. I went for the interview. The house was vast. Not opulent in a gaudy way, but in a minimalist, art gallery sort of way. Everything was white, gray, or polished wood. Aurora was charming, Julian intense. They spoke about their busy schedules, their desire for stability for the children, intellectual stimulation. They wanted someone discreet, someone who understood the unique pressures of their lives. I nodded, said the right things. I got the job. My first week was a blur of introductions to staff, a chef, a housekeeper, security. The children, Leo and Luna, were quiet, preternaturally so. They spoke in complete sentences, always polite, always addressing me as Mr. Alex. They had matching outfits, usually muted tones, and moved with a synchronized grace that was unsettling. They had a pet, an ancient, silent parrot named Echo, perched in a gilded cage in the living room. It never made a sound, just watched. My duties were clear: school runs, homework, structured play, meal supervision, bedtime. No unscheduled outings. No outside friends. Limited screen time, and only for specific educational programs approved by their parents. No talking about the outside world, unless it was directly related to their studies. It felt less like a home and more like a highly controlled environment. I tried to engage them. "What do you like to do for fun?" I asked one afternoon after their Mandarin lesson. Leo looked at Luna, then back at me. "We enjoy our studies, Mr. Alex," Luna added. "And our quiet time." "Quiet time." "Yes," Leo said. "It's important for reflection." I tried to introduce board games, art projects. They participated, but without enthusiasm. It was as if they were following a script. Their drawings were precise, almost architectural, never whimsical. Aurora and Julian were rarely home. When they were, it was a whirlwind. Photo shoots, interviews, charity galas. They'd sweep in, hug the children for a carefully timed minute, ask about their day in a way that felt rehearsed, then disappear into their wing of the house. The children would revert to their quiet, watchful selves the moment their parents were out of sight. One evening, I found Leo and Luna in their playroom, which was surprisingly sparse. They were playing a game. Luna was holding a small, ornate hand mirror, pretending to speak into it. Leo was pacing, gesturing grandly. "Darling," Luna said, her voice a perfect imitation of Aurora's public persona. "The public expects perfection. We simply cannot afford a single misstep." Leo, mimicking Julian's more intense, brooding look, replied, "The art demands sacrifice, my love. Our lives are not our own. They belong to the narrative." They weren't just playing. They were embodying these roles with an unnerving accuracy. They were playing. "The Sterling Vance says." "What are you doing?" I asked, trying to sound light. They froze. Luna dropped the mirror. Leo stopped pacing. "We were just reflecting, Mr. Alex," Leo said, picking up the mirror. "It's a game," Luna added quickly, "to understand our parents' important work." I let it go, but it bothered me. It wasn't a game of imagination. It was a game of imitation, of internalizing their parents' public personas. Days turned into weeks. I noticed other things. The children never argued, never squabbled. They shared everything without complaint. If one wanted a toy, the other would immediately offer it. It was a level of harmony that felt unnatural for 7-year-olds. They also had a peculiar fascination with Echo, the parrot. They would sit in front of its cage for long stretches, just watching it. Sometimes they would whisper to it. "Echo knows," Luna would murmur. "Echo sees," Leo would reply. I asked them about it once. "What does Echo know?" Leo looked at me with those unnervingly calm eyes. "Echo knows the rules, Mr. Alex. Echo reminds us." "Reminds you of what?" "Of what is expected," Luna finished. I started to feel a growing unease. This wasn't just strict parenting. It felt like something else. I tried to introduce more spontaneity. A trip to a local park, just us. "We cannot, Mr. Alex," Leo said. "Mother and father have specified our outings. But it's a beautiful day. We could just go for a walk." "Our schedule does not permit it," Luna stated, as if reciting from a manual. I pushed a little. "Don't you ever want to just run around, get dirty?" They exchanged a look. A flicker of something, fear? Confusion? Crossed Luna's face. "We prefer to maintain our composure," Leo said. "It is important for our development." One afternoon, while tidying their playroom, I found a small, leather-bound journal tucked away beneath a pile of pristine art supplies. It wasn't a diary in the traditional sense. It was filled with drawings. Drawings of Echo, always in the center of the page, sometimes with lines radiating from it like sound waves, sometimes with tiny figures of Leo and Luna listening intently. And there were words, scrawled in a child's hand, but in a code. Simple substitutions, like A equals 1, B equals 2. It took me an hour to decipher a few phrases. "Echo whispers the truth. The whispers guide us. Do not disappoint Echo. The secret room protects." The secret room. They had mentioned it before in passing. A place they went in their minds. I had dismissed it as a child's fantasy. Now, with the journal, it felt different. I sat with the journal, my heart pounding. This wasn't just about strict rules. This was about something deeper, something manipulative. The parrot, Echo, was clearly a symbol, a focal point for some kind of psychological conditioning. I decided I had to talk to them directly. I waited until after their evening meal, when Aurora and Julian were out at a premiere. "Leo, Luna," I began, holding up the journal. "I found this. Can we talk about it?" They went rigid. Their eyes darted to the journal, then to each other. "It is private, Mr. Alex," Luna said, her voice barely a whisper. "I know. But I'm worried about you. What are these whispers? What is the secret room?" Leo took a deep breath. "The whispers are instructions. From Echo. Echo doesn't talk, Leo. Not with its mouth," Luna clarified. "With its presence. It reminds us of what mother and father want. What is good? What is perfect? And the secret room? It's where we go when things are too much," Leo explained, his voice flat. "When we feel bad, we go there and we remember the rules. We remember to be calm, to be good. Who taught you about the secret room?" They looked at each other again. "Mother and father," Luna said. "They said it would help us manage the pressures, to be strong. They said Echo would help us understand," Leo added. "That Echo was a wise guardian, always watching, always knowing." My stomach churned. This wasn't just a game. This was a system. A system designed to control their thoughts, their emotions, their very sense of self, all under the guise of protection and perfection. The parrot, silent and watchful, was the perfect, non-threatening symbol for constant surveillance and internalized rules. The secret room was a form of emotional suppression, a way to disconnect from their own feelings. I spent the next few days observing them with new eyes. Every polite answer, every synchronized movement, every moment of quiet reflection felt like a performance. They weren't just well-behaved, they were programmed. and they were deeply, profoundly lonely. The randomness of their lives wasn't chaos, but a carefully curated, unpredictable schedule that kept them off balance, always seeking the whispers of echo for guidance. I knew I couldn't stay silent. This wasn't just a job anymore. This was about two children being psychologically manipulated by their own parents. The tell-all wasn't going to be a scandalous expose of celebrity affairs or drug use. It was going to be about this. The quiet, insidious abuse of power, hidden behind a facade of perfection. I started documenting everything. Not just the journal, but specific instances. Their refusal to engage in spontaneous play, their fear when I suggested breaking a minor rule, their constant references to what is expected. I recorded their conversations about Echo and the secret room. I knew it was a risk, but I couldn't ignore it. The opportunity came a week later. Aurora and Julian were home for a rare full day, preparing for a major interview about their perfect family life. I waited until the children were asleep. I walked into the living room, where they were reviewing talking points with their publicist. "Aurora, Julian," I said, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "We need to talk. Without the publicist." The publicist, a sharp woman named Brenda, looked annoyed. Aurora raised an eyebrow. Julian just stared. "Alex, is there a problem?" Aurora asked, her tone carefully modulated. "Yes, a serious one." Brenda gathered her things, shooting me a warning glance, and left. I laid out the journal on the polished coffee table. "I found this. It belongs to Leo and Luna." Aurora picked it up, her expression shifting from annoyance to confusion as she saw the drawings of Echo and the coded messages. Julian leaned in, his brow furrowed. "What is this?" Aurora asked, her voice losing some of its practiced calm. "It's their internal world," I said. "The world you've created for them." I explained the whispers, the secret room, the role of Echo. I recounted their conversations, their fear, their inability to act spontaneously. "They believe Echo is a guardian, delivering your instructions. They believe they must go to a secret room in their minds to suppress their own feelings and conform to your expectations. They are terrified of disappointing you." Aurora's face went pale. Julian slammed his hand on the table. "This is absurd, Alex. We are protecting our children. From the media, from the pressures, from the ugliness of the world. By stripping them of their childhood? By teaching them to suppress their emotions? By making them believe a parrot is their moral compass?" I countered, my voice rising. "They are not protected, they are imprisoned. Psychologically. We taught them coping mechanisms." Aurora insisted, her voice cracking. "To be resilient. To be strong. You taught them to be automatons," I said. "They don't know how to be children. They don't know how to feel. They are deeply, profoundly unhappy, and they are terrified of showing it." Julian stood up, towering over me. "You are overstepping, Alex. You are a nanny. You have no idea what it's like to raise children in our world." "I know what it's like to see children suffer," I shot back. "And they are suffering. This isn't about protecting them from the outside world. It's about protecting your image. Your perfect family narrative." I pulled out my phone. I have recordings of their conversations, of their fear. I have the journal. I have weeks of observations. I can go to the press. Not with gossip, not with scandal, but with the truth of what you are doing to your children. The psychological abuse. And believe me, the public will not see a perfect family then. They will see two parents who have systematically broken their children's spirits." The thread hung in the air. Aurora stared at me, then at Julian. Her carefully constructed composure crumbled. Tears welled in her eyes. Julian, for the first time, looked genuinely shaken, not just angry. "What do you want?" Julian asked, his voice low. "I want you to get them help," I said. "Professional help. Therapy. For them and for yourselves. I want you to dismantle this system of control. I want them to be allowed to be children. To make mistakes. To feel. To have friends. To go to a park without it being a scheduled event." Aurora sank onto the sofa, burying her face in her hands. We thought we were doing what was best. You were doing what was easiest for your image," I corrected gently. "But it's destroying them." Julian walked over to the window, looking out at the vast, empty grounds. He was silent for a long moment. Then he turned. "All right," he said, his voice hoarse. "All right. We'll get them help. We'll get ourselves help. But you stay. You help us. You're the only one who seems to understand what's happening." "And the rules?" I asked. "The rules change," Aurora said, looking up, her eyes red but resolute. "Everything changes." The next few months were difficult. We brought in a child psychologist, Dr. Evelyn Reed, who specialized in family dynamics and trauma. She confirmed my fears. The children were exhibiting signs of emotional neglect and psychological conditioning. Aurora and Julian resisted at first, especially Julian. He saw it as an admission of failure. But Dr. Reed was firm, and I was there, a constant reminder of the truth. The first step was to remove Echo. The parrot was rehomed to a sanctuary. The children were distraught at first, but Dr. Reed explained that the symbol needed to be removed for them to begin to heal. Then came the slow, painful process of deprogramming. We started with small things. Unscheduled trips to the park. Finger painting. Messy play. I encouraged them to express their feelings, even negative ones. It was like watching two tiny robots slowly learn to be human. There were arguments, of course. Julian would snap back into his old ways, demanding perfection. Aurora would try to micromanage their emotions. But Dr. Reed was there, and so was I, to gently but firmly redirect them. "They need to feel safe to be imperfect," I'd remind them. "They need to learn to trust their own feelings, not just the whispers," Dr. Reed would add. Slowly, things began to shift. Leo started drawing messy, colorful pictures. Luna laughed, a genuine, uninhibited sound I hadn't heard before. They started squabbling over toys, then quickly making up. They started asking for things, expressing preferences. They even started calling me Alex instead of Mr. Alex. Aurora and Julian, under Dr. Reed's guidance, began to spend more quality time with them, not just performative moments. They learned to listen, to validate their children's feelings, to apologize when they slipped up. It was a long, arduous process, and their celebrity lives still pulled at them, but they were trying. My tell-all never became a book. It was a story I told to Aurora and Julian, a story that forced them to confront the reality of their parenting. It was a story I lived, and continued to live, as I stayed on as their nanny, now more of a guide and an advocate. The arguments were closed. The children were slowly, painstakingly, learning to be children. The parents were learning to be parents. The silence in the house was no longer the oppressive quiet of control, but the comfortable hum of a family finding its way, sometimes messy, sometimes loud, but always, finally, real.